It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Wednesday, September 17th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high-quality content that really loves Danny Briere's confidence.
Yeah, it's unwavering.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade, and I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 20 years, Russ Cohen. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com, and you can win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. To keep track of our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter. And of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, we did hear from Danny Briere in his preseason press conference. A lot of interesting stuff we're going to get to out of that. We've got your mailbag questions later in the show to get to about goaltending and the Ivan Fedotov trade, so much more. But we did get the official training camp roster and schedule. It is actually happening. First day on the ice will be Thursday. Excited for that. And man, Egor Zamula's name being left off the initial.
Yeah, that was rough.
That's a rough blow.
He's a regular.
I know. But all is well, and he is returning with the team, and he's been there. So it's
he never went anywhere. Just his name did.
Yeah. And of course, we have the first preseason game coming up this Sunday up at the Islanders. So, Flyers hockey right around the corner.
I'm sure
here.
Everybody will watch that game with football going on.
Oh, listen, it's in the evening, so maybe their games will be over earlier.
Well, they're still on the evening game, but they have a better chance on that one.
Yeah. Now, speaking of training camp, there was obviously some questions about player injury status heading into it. And Danny Briere, in his press conference, was able to talk about that to some degree. And Rasmus Ristolainen has been kind of a black hole of information. This was my nemesis of the week, by the way. So it was the information black hole about injuries.
Not much more illuminated, I feel.
Not much more, but a little bit. So I'm feeling a little less salty about it than I was on the Monday show. But Rasmus Ristolainen, things are looking good for him to rejoin the team. 6 to 8 weeks is what Danny Briere was saying, because he said a month and a half to 2 months. So I'm interpreting that as 6 to 8 weeks.
I imagine he's going to have to go on a conditioning with the Phantoms because he can't just walk in, not having played in this amount of time and expect to get anything out of them. So I'd be shocked if he doesn't at least work out with them in Lehigh and stuff at that point. We'll see.
Yeah. Tyson Forster has been wearing the non-contact jersey in the kind of captain skates they've been doing on the side rink while rookie camp is going on. So we have seen him out there. According to Briere, he's going to continue to wear that non-contact jersey at least for a week into training camp.
That's fine.
And then they'll kind of see. That's fine. Briere was pretty confident he was going to get into it, at least a couple of the preseason games. And that kind of tracks with what we'd heard before, right?
Yeah, no worries there, but there is one to worry about.
There is. Jet Luchenko is going to be a full participant in main camp. That's the good side. That is good to hear.
That's not the one now to worry about.
No, it's Oliver Bonk. Now, he did not play in the rookie games because of an upper body issue. They really thought he was going to play in the second game after he sat out the first one. He had some imaging done yesterday.
Don't image if it's nothing.
Yeah. Obviously they have not been more specific because that is the way of the NHL. It's upper body, lower body, right?
Right.
But
I mean, the image, within like 45 minutes, especially teams.
You do.
So, the fact is they know and we don't. That's really the reality.
Yeah, like we all get those test result notifications when we get scans.
Yeah, if we knew what we were doing, we would be able to read them instead of waiting on a radiologist. So
Yeah, so that is definitely the one that we are the most concerned about here,
Right.
right? Because Bonk, not only did we miss out on seeing him in the rookie games, but if he sits out even longer or isn't able to participate in the preseason, that kind of limits our ability to assess where he's at in terms of development and in terms of, where he fits in
Right.
the broader scheme, Phantoms versus Flyers. I mean, obviously we've thought he belongs on the Phantoms, but
Right.
in what role and how.
Right. Even it makes it harder just for the Phantoms. So yeah.
Yeah, so that is the one we'll be keeping the closest eye on in addition to the Tyson Forster up
Right.
then when he's no longer wearing the purple jersey, although I kind of like the purple jersey as the
I mean,
non-contact.
I would love it because nobody would be able to hit me.
Yeah.
Although I think Eric Lindros thought that once with Francis Lassard, and he still hit him right in practice. So that was
All
a
right.
long time
So
ago, folks.
it was a long time ago. That's a very deep cut there. Good on you though. Now, getting to some of the other stuff that Danny Briere talked about, I think, talking about the goaltending and first off, the Ivan Fedotov trade. And, first and foremost, Briere emphasized that it helped them with the salary cap. And I think now they don't need the LTIR
Which
space
is
for
what
the
we
Ellis
figured.
contract. Exactly. And, at the same time, it opens up the logjam in terms of the goaltending situation. And I feel like he feels very similar to me about Alexei Kolosov, that, he had a rough year last year. He needs to play a lot of games. It was very stop and start, very intermittent. And we know that Kolosov could have played a lot more if he agreed to play in the AHL a lot more, but it seems like that issue is settled and that he will play in Lehigh Valley if asked to do so. And so, it's up to him now. And that's what I said, okay, fine. It's your show now.
I think this confidence is unwarranted, and honestly, I still have positioning problems with him when he did play. Like what he was doing, he get late getting over. Like how is that automatically magically going to be cured? Like he had a chance to watch a lot of games, so that's the part I have a little jaundiced eye with.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I just think that Briere's kind of also, much like me, putting the onus on Kolosov to prove it,
Sure.
because now he has the opportunity
I mean,
and he'll get the games.
see, the thing is, you could put the onus on the player, but there is that conduit between the player and the team, and that's called the goalie coach. Just saying.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to that for sure. But Briere also mentioned that it cleared the path for Bjarnason to get a healthy number of games as well, and this will be really good for his development, which is something we both have agreed on, that was an extremely important thing given how shallow the Flyers goaltending depth is in the system. We've got Zavragin over in the KHL, but that's it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and
So
Bjarnason doesn't have any pro games, and even saying he's a 4, like you should not see Carson Bjarnason in the NHL this year unless he has to just sit on the bench because as a, just in caser. Otherwise, no. You shouldn't even see him.
Yep, I agree. Now, on the Carter Hart possibility there, Briere said that Carter Hart's agent reached out to the team saying that based on everything, it was in Carter Hart's best interest to get a fresh start somewhere else, and that is what
That's
it is.
that.
So
It's over.
that door is closed, and at least for this initial contract that Carter Hart is signing, coming back, and that's kind of what I guessed. That why would he want to come back? To be honest,
Yeah. I mean, like we had talked about, he sold his house quick. I mean, he was out of here pretty quick. So not really a huge surprise, but you had to hear it.
Yep. So now we can sort of move on from that. But I think kind of more importantly, in terms of what Danny Briere was talking about, especially around season expectations and some player expectations, roster spot battles that are up for grabs. It was just really interesting to hear how he talked about some of this because, like I said at the very top of the show, he has a lot of confidence in some things. And not a lot of confidence in some other things. And I think he really was putting a lot on the players' side of things to kind of prove themselves, even players that he just signed to brand new contracts.
I mean, it's his right. I mean, it's within their right. Like, if I'm paying you, I expect results. That's fair.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. And, he believes that they will improve with the additions and the re-signings that they have made. Obviously he talked about Trevor Zegras and Christian Dvorak as key, additions to the team. And so the most interesting aspect of it to me was him talking about the fact that he could trade guys like Scott Lawton, like Joel Farabee, like Morgan Frost last year because he felt that the younger guys had stepped up enough and replaced them in those key roles that those guys have played.
I don't think
And
that's
now
fully true, but okay.
Well, right. Well, you can agree or disagree,
Right.
but I think it was interesting that that was like something he said
Right.
specifically, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. So we're talking about all these players and, players that there's an investment in. And there was one name I didn't hear anybody bring up, Owen Tippett.
Nope. Once again, last week we didn't hear Owen Tippett's name mentioned. This week we did not
he's
hear
in
Owen
all the
Tippett's name
artwork.
mentioned.
There's no mention of Owen Tippett at all, positive or negative, and I find that interesting.
Yeah, I think it's a glaring, gaping hole in the conversation here, and I think that you can't help but notice. So I honestly don't know where expectations are for him
I don't either.
for the team,
I don't
and
either.
I think we're going to want to hear a lot from Rick talking about that for sure as camp opens, because somebody's got to talk about him.
Somebody has to mention Owen Tippett at some point.
Yeah.
Might have to be me when I get back from Pittsburgh. Who knows?
Yeah. So we will talk about the guys they did mention, including some of the key defensemen, as well as some of the roster spots that are up for grabs coming up next. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, your properties, or your investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. And that's why there is Monarch Money. It's your all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes. You see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending. You'll finally feel in control of your money without even touching a spreadsheet. Monarch helps you notice inefficient investment allocation. You can discover forgotten 401ks from past jobs. Then you can bring it all together, turn it around, and reinvest. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. All right, on our next show, we will do a deeper dive preview into main camp and talk a little bit more in detail about these camp battles that are going to come up. It'll be a really interesting camp, I gotta say. And I'm planning to be there on Friday and Saturday, so I'll be able to report directly from there. Now, looking at, the season expectations that Danny Briere had, he said that they should improve with those additions like we talked about. And he was asked specifically what happens if they don't succeed. Are they going to be willing to sell at the deadline or do what they need to get additional assets like they've done in the past? And he said, yeah, he's like, it would be unfortunate, but you do what you got to do.
Yeah, he went a step further than Keith Jones was willing to say that, if things failed, he might reconsider how they're doing the rebuild. And I think that's the smart answer, actually, because I think at that point, then you have to start making some internal changes.
Right. And I think, it's not just how you're proactive, but it's how you're reactive to the situation at hand, because you can plan all you want. And I do think Briere has done a good job as a general rule in terms of adjusting to changes in the plan, like especially with Michkov coming over sooner. I think he has adjusted to that eventuality. I think you can argue the draft picks, but I think he, as a general manager, adjusted to what was going to be available to him in the draft, knocking down a couple spots in the pick order. I think he's done a generally decent job of that, but I do
There
think
are
this will
just some
be.
things like he has done a general decent job. I think though with the back office, the way it kind of works and it's structured and everything, I don't think he's put enough into that, to be honest. And I think that's an area that can be improved. And if they were to slip a little, I think they would look at that area to improve it.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I think, again, if things take a huge slide backwards this year, you're going to have to evaluate everything, right?
Right.
And look at your plan overall and how it's being borne out in all the
Right.
different areas there. So I definitely get that. Now, as far as the roster spots up for grabs here, according to him, there are a few of them. I don't know what that means specifically, but he talked about who he thought looked good in the rookie games, mentioning Grabenkin and Bump.
Mhm.
Even though Luchenko didn't play, of course, he brings him up again. I feel like somewhat out of obligation, but also Luchenko's a good player, so I get it.
He is.
And then I thought, he did
I mean,
separate out it.
just to answer that part of it, we thought Grabenkin looked good, but he even admitted himself, Grabenkin, that the first game wasn't what he wanted. Second game was better. Bump didn't show a lot. So this is just carrying through from dev camp. If I didn't watch Alex Bump in dev camp and I watched what I just watched in the games, I'd be wondering.
Yeah, I think Bump looked good in very specific moments in these games. It just
Sure.
wasn't consistent throughout the
Right.
game. So
That's
I
fair.
would say it was more of a mixed bag. I think there
Yes.
was a lot of good there. I just don't think it was consistent enough. But he did mention Barkey and Nesbitt and Gaucher as kind of a second tier of forwards. On the blue line side of things, he mentioned
I will say
Grant.
this about Nesbitt, to put the maybe into next year, like, yeah, maybe next year he'll push for a job. They shouldn't even be talking about that. Like, to me, that was like, don't talk about that, because
I don't know that he meant next
he-
year specifically.
well, he did.
He
No,
said
he
down
said
the road.
no. He was talking about next year, just maybe pushing, because he likes to always talk about the young guys pushing.
Yeah.
Draft plus one. Don't talk about Martone. Talk about pushing. That's fine. Nesbitt, wait on that. I would wait.
I think
on
Berglund is a reasonable name.
Berglund's
to put
reasonable
on that list.
because of his physical strength. I think that was reasonable too. But Nesbitt's the one where it's like, maybe you should wait on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I think that's absolutely fair.
I'm not saying he did anything wrong. I'm just saying if it were me, I would kind of not raise expectations on Nesbitt.
Yeah. Now, on the blue line side of things, Helge Grans, Emil Andre, and then, of course, Bonk, there's the question mark with the injury status.
Right.
But those are the guys that would be in the mix to compete for a spot. But then he mentions that they added Juleson and Gilbert.
They have to mention it.
Right, because he signed them. But you have those 5 guys essentially battling for one spot that may be the 7th D. So
Yeah, it's a nebulous spot. It's like
it
a
is.
spot in the press box, probably next to me. So
Yeah,
I mean, what we're talking about.
Juleson has a higher chance just because of the Ristolainen injury.
Yes.
I think, there's a little bit more space in there, but it's not long term. That's for sure.
No, it's not.
The biggest issue or part of the conversation is expectations surrounding Cam York and Jamie Drysdale. And I think that Danny Briere is obviously confident in those guys because of the contracts he gave them, but those contracts were very smart and very sellable. I thought, on the York side of things in particular. And I feel like you have to read between the lines a little bit with how he talks about Cam York. I think he projects confidence and says, I know there's more to Cam York's game, but he doesn't really guarantee anything or put expectations so high that they're unreasonable. I think he expects Cam York to contribute a lot, but I don't think that he necessarily expects the offensive output that you might think he does.
Well, he says he has another level to get to, and he talked about offensive. So there is some expectation that it's going to be much better than it was. And Jamie, he definitely has offensive expectations. And so I did a little digging, right? I didn't want to look at Vancouver last year because it was a really bad year. A lot of bad things going on with Pettersson. So I went the year before, and they happened to make the playoffs that year. That was a good year for Tocchet too, right? So for all the talk that, hey, maybe the Flyers can do what Tocchet did, and and we know nobody's Quinn Hughes, but I hear all of this, right, all the time.
Right.
So I decided to look at like what the kind of formula was, and so the formula for like the top pairing was shots attempted was like 739. Just those two players, not the rest of the core. In their top years, Cam York was shooting like 289 shots. Jamie, like 4 years ago, 269. Just those two guys. Even if you had them as your top pairing, Sanheim doesn't shoot as much as those two. That's why I don't even mention him. If you put those three, they might equal the 739. So what's different? Puck possession. You can't shoot if you don't have the puck. Or, as we used to really harp on, getting the puck up the ice and holding on to it when you're in the offensive zone, making that next pass, and then getting a shot off, right? And so that part is not guaranteed.
And that's a key part of Tocchet's system, right? It's just a matter of these guys can execute on that.
Correct. And so that part's not guaranteed. Formulaically wise, yes, the coach will try and do the same things. Player-wise, we know there's a drop-off. So how much can these guys raise it to get close to that? Because they're not going to hit that number. They're not. But that's what you have to wonder. And I even looked at their top shooting numbers, and forgetting about shooting percentage, I didn't even get into shooting percentage. I just got into shots attempted. So I found that interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting. And that's the linchpin here, right? Because, and that's something we've been talking about with a defensive first breakout oriented offense that Rick Tocchet uses.
Yeah.
These guys haven't played like that. They just haven't.
No.
And the Torts system really didn't focus on that at all. No. I think, they wanted to have puck possession down the ice, but it wasn't as structured as what Tocchet
But even for Jamie
do.
Drysdale, it's been years since he's had like that 290 shots that I talked about. Years.
Right. And so these guys are going to have to be, possession-wise responsible, but then take the shot at the other end of the ice and create the rebounds, and then the forwards obviously have to be in the right position. And that's kind of what we're looking for. I'm less concerned with the point totals and more concerned with the shots on target.
Right. Point totals, nothing's ever, listen, when you're talking about analytics and stuff, it's always nice to talk about expected goals and everything. And my smart ass answer is, yeah, it's expected, but they're not guaranteed. So I'm not guaranteeing this will prove goals either. What I'm saying is this is the hope that you'll get more action, more goals, more, because things are happening. You have to at least have things happening.
They'll get more chances.
Because they'll get more chances.
They'll take
more chances,
more shots.
The better your chances are. Doesn't mean you'll bury them, but at least you have a better chance of doing that.
Yep. That is the way it should go, hopefully. And I think, other than that, there was some more little small notes. I would say, on the rebuild as a whole. Danny Briere continues to say he wants this to be a destination for free agents to sign, but also for his current players to want to re-sign there.
Yeah, it's not quite that yet. I don't. And
it isn't, and he said that.
Right, and even next year it might not be. Like as an example,
he said 3 to 4 years for a big free agent signing.
Right, Connor McDavid's not coming here next year, even if he's a free agent. Kaprizov, I doubt it, even he's a free agent, because when those guys are viewing teams and they're looking at the Flyers, they're thinking, yeah, okay, 3 years into my next deal, maybe they'll be there. I want it to be now. So that's the way those guys are going to be thinking. So it'll be that next wave of guys, whoever it is at that time. And that's fine. That's what I expect.
All right. Well, we're going to check back in on these statements maybe midway through the season to see how the Flyers are doing relative to them. In the meantime, y'all have some great questions about the Flyers, and we are going to get into those coming up next.
The NFL season's finally here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. Right now, I'm sticking with the Baltimore Ravens for the odds on them winning the Super Bowl. So you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
All right, getting straight into the mailbag and some comments on the Ivan Fedotov trade. 1965 CJW on Twitter said, "Genius, Danny B is a goddamn stud." Clearly very much liked the deal because of the cap space, I'm sure, and clearing the decks. Over on Blue Sky, Thomas said, "The big guy is gone. Hoped he was better, but he wasn't." So that's kind of like, yeah, this was like a good deal. We had to make it sort of thing. And but I think there's also the aspect of it that we didn't really address at the time of the trade, but the whole, I think, nightmare scenario of sending a Russian goaltender to Columbus who then finds great success, right?
Yeah.
We know that's happened in the past.
We do.
And so Muscles Marinara commented, "Good for him. He gets to play behind a real defense now with real goal support," which I don't know if that's entirely true about Columbus, but it's somewhat
well, they have
true.
Werenski and a couple more guys. It's probably a couple more than they have here. So it's a little true.
Little true. Yeah, that's fair. But that Fedotov was definitely done dirty by Torts and Dillabaugh. Not sure why that man still has a job. I mean, on that part of it, we can probably agree.
Yeah, I
in
mean,
some ways, right?
I don't disagree.
I think, there's certainly some doubt or some question as to if Fedotov could have succeeded with more regular play, right?
Right. But they chose Kolosov. Why did they choose Kolosov? Because of his age and he makes less money. Yep. Was it the right decision? Should we determine? They both could be the wrong decision other than clearing cap space. So, that part's good. Everything else may not work out.
Yeah, and Mark also commented, "Fedotov will play regularly in Columbus and become a star goaltender."
Well, that's always the mentality, and I get it.
Yeah, it's hard not to.
Right.
I totally sympathize because, we've been burned before on that front.
No, I
and
get
seen
it.
players go elsewhere and find success, and especially like goalies has been an especial source of consternation for Flyers fans.
There's PTSD with that.
Sure. Curious Boomer commented about rookie camp. "You need to give younger guys a chance in competition with Flyers teammates and against league foes." And that's exactly what we said. Of the guys,
at some point, yes.
The guys that stood out in the rookie series, like now Grabenkin specifically, at least for me, he's the guy I want to see most matched up against the Flyers teammates in camp and then up against competition
and see how he
in
looks
the preseason.
Against them. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, I think it's especially important. I also kind of want to see that from Emile Andre and see like where he is now, because I don't know. I honestly have no idea what his summer looks like.
I know what he could do. It's just it kind of, we have to see what the coach is going to do with him. Yeah. That's gonna matter.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's going to be huge. Again, with some of the injuries, like with Bonk, it's hard to say for sure.
Yeah, he could be missing a little time. It's not going to shock me.
Yeah, that is for sure. Tom sent us an email saying, "Being a fantasy geek, I'm dialed into the players based on stats. One of the best performing Flyers statistically is Nick Seeler with 3 goals, 17 assists, 200 blocks, third in the league, and ended up somehow a +10 on the season. He doesn't seem to be regarded as a high quality defender. I'm wondering what your opinion of him is, and do you think he's undervalued?"
I think for half the teams in the league, he'd play on the third pair. I think there's a few he might not play on at all, but I think most would use him that way. I think he thrived in a Torts system, so we're a little hesitant outside of Torts to see, but also the amount of blocks that he's piled up the last few years, that takes a toll. Like we've talked about Dan Girardi and other guys that had blocked until they can't block anymore. So he did get banged up a lot last year. He was playing injured a lot. So it was a terrific year. No question about it. I don't know. Can he replicate it by blocking that many shots the year before? I don't know.
Yeah. And that's why I struggle to say that he's undervalued. I think he's valued pretty spot on.
Yeah.
Like
I think
in terms of how he's used, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's right where it is.
Yeah, and that's why he's able to have some success getting on the board, right?
Right.
Especially
if you make enough positive plays, you touch the puck, you're going to get some assists. He had a couple of surprising goals for sure, but it's not like he's making these great passes to set up plays.
Right. I mean, everybody has some surprise great
Yes.
goals. Look at what Nick Delorier does
Correct.
sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that, yeah, I just really feel like he's a very good aspect of the Flyers blue line right now in terms of
Yeah.
what we have needed over the last couple of years. Like, no question. I just think league wide, I think he's valued pretty
Yeah,
much
I mean,
on
you got to give
market.
Chuck Fletcher credit for this one because he really was kind of
Mhm.
toiling in Minnesota and got a much better role here.
Well, and thought he was going to retire and like
Yeah.
rebuilt an entire NHL career
Yeah.
coming to the Flyers. So I think he has done himself a lot of
No
justice
question.
here. At Flyers Purgatory, on the arena update that we gave based on what we heard from Dan Hilferty last week, said Josh Harris ain't in as big of a rush because he's working on the Commander Stadium, which will be worth a lot more. I mean, fair, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's no argument here.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to touch that.
Yeah, and that's what's always a challenge when the team that you root for is owned by a conglomerate that owns
Right.
multiple teams in multiple leagues in multiple markets, right? You
Right.
never know what the
Because then,
priority is.
well, I mean, just think about it, and Devils fans are in this too, and they don't know
Yep.
where they stand in the pecking order anymore.
Nope, they do not. It's like, especially with this shiny new arena in Philadelphia,
Right.
what does he care about the Prudential Center
Right.
and what the Devils are doing? I
Right.
think, yeah, little like redheaded stepchild aspect within that company. I would not be surprised if they tried to sell that team
At some
off.
point, it wouldn't shock me.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. That will do it for today's show. Thanks so much for listening. And we will, of course, be back tomorrow to preview main training camp in a little bit more detail. And as a reminder, we always want to hear from you. If you want your question answered on the show, like we did today, you can let us know your thoughts via any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast. It brings you the daily league-wide stories that matter most with local coverage you love from Locked On. You can find it on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.